Several years ago, I had a coworker who I started wondering if maybe she just preferred to fib to me rather than tell me the truth. Well, that's what I was starting to conclude. I would ask her if she would do a certain task. She would sort of hesitate. I explained why it needed to be done, and she'd agree to do it. Only she never did it. Worse yet, she'd leave me an email or a note after the fact saying that it wasn't done, but it was too late. It was after the fact. She broke her promises. Um, Last August, I was 2,000 miles away from home on a vacation, purchased some items in a store. The store agreed to ship them to me. 2.5 weeks later, 5 emails, 4 phone calls, I didn't have my packages. They set the expectation with me that they were going to deliver the package. The packages were never shipped. They violated that expectation. And maybe the same things have happened to you. Maybe you work with a coworker who's not pulling their weight. Maybe you know people who agree to do things but never follow through. Maybe it's a performance issue. Maybe there's some kind of gap. And when we see a problem or a gap, let's say it's a performance issue. Here's the expected performance, but here's where you are. And I think maybe if I speak up and say something to you about it, it'll only make matters worse. Maybe you'll go to violence or silence and I won't get any results from you. The results will deteriorate. So I just don't say anything. I go to silence. And guess what? Problem gets worse. So then I get frustrated and I go to violence. But violence doesn't work. I get tired of that and I go back to silence. So I'm in this sort of ugly downward spiral, this cycle that sort of looks like this. If you imagine it going down the toilet, and that's what our relationships go and our results. When we don't step up and hold those crucial confrontations, it costs us. I was fortunate enough a while back to be working with a large healthcare firm. They had 5 acute care facilities. And in the course of my discussions with some of the people at the acute care facilities, I was fortunate enough to meet Norma. Norma was a wonderful woman. She had started as a floor nurse in surgery at their largest hospital, their flagship hospital. Norma had been there several decades and was now director of all of the OR, the operating room. And in our discussions early on, Norma confided in me. She said, "I'm stuck. I'm not getting results where I need to." And I said, "Tell me about it." She said, "I have 2 long-term OR nurses. One's been here 20 years, one's been here 30 years. I know if I try and address it, things will get worse, they'll go violent. They're creating problems with coworkers because the coworkers don't like it. The bad thing is, they're incredible nurses from a skill level. But that's where it stops. And they're equally as ineffective with people skills. The doctors see it, the fellow employees see it. I'm stuck. What am I going to do?" And so we had some discussion around that. Well, fortunately, they were rolling out through all their hospital facilities with their directors crucial confrontations. Norma attended the 2-day class, and what we started figuring out from having some conversations with Norma is that she was choosing silence. She was not saying anything. And when she chooses silence, several things happen. She was sort of becoming a silent colluder. She was allowing that behavior to continue. And it also looked like she was playing favorites. She was telling herself ugly stories, and they continued to get worse. She was a victim. These 2 long-term OR nurses were villains, and she was helpless to do anything about it. She could go to silence or violence, and she chose silence. And it looks like she's playing favorites, and it just made matters worse. Well, we talked through some things, and I wished her luck. And about 30 days later, I was back in the hospital, and I happened to run into Norma in the hall, and she said, "Come here." And she pulled me into a room. She said, "You're never going to guess what happened." And I said, "Tell me." She said, "I had that conversation. I can't tell you, it could not have gone any better." She said, "We stayed in dialogue, even though they might have been hurt and frustrated and angry. They did not go to violence on me. We stayed in dialogue." She said, "I was confident that I was going to get through this." And she said, I approached it very humbly because I knew how I approached them was going to dictate a lot of how they reacted to me. She said, "Thank you. I can't believe it works." And these were her exact words. She said, "These skills are like magic." And what's so important to me is not that the skills work. I know that. I've seen wins harvested throughout different kinds of organizations that they never thought they would harvest. But for me, it's about someone who formerly would never have felt the confidence or had the skill level to step up and hold that crucial confrontation, who now felt like she did and now was getting better and different results. So the solution is, How do you learn to rapidly improve results and relationships? By confronting those broken promises, violated expectations, and bad behavior. In our study, we looked at one company, and just in this one company alone, we found that an increase of 18% in the use, just 18% attempt of the use of these skills, translated or correlated to an over 40% improvement of productivity. That's phenomenal. We also found that with a 22% increase in the use of the skills, that led to over 30% increase in quality, almost a 40% increase in productivity, nearly a 50% drop in cost, and morale improvement of 20%. Folks, those are some phenomenal results. I've had a chance to talk to the CAO of Norma's Hospital a little bit later, and we were discussing what Norma had, her success. And I said, Keith, can you put a price tag for me, just out of curiosity, on how much it saved the hospital by retaining these two OR nurses? And Keith looked at me and he thought for a moment. He said, you know, Dave, I could talk about recruiting costs and the cost of bad morale and low productivity when somebody leaves the workplace. I could talk about the cost of having to get travelers nurses in here, but right now that's not what I'm concerned about. He said, what is so important to me about this is that I've retained 50 years of OR nursing experience. He said, I don't think I can put a price tag on that. And to me, that's the win. If you practice these skills, these crucial confrontation skills, you get out of that dangerous cycle. You step up and hold the confrontation and have it go well and get different and better results. Thank you so much.